Hi everyone, I'm Heath Hightower, co-host of Process Recordings. Before we get started with today's show, I want to just give you a quick reminder. While Lisa and I hope you find our show useful, we also want you to know that it's not a substitute for therapy. If you do need a therapist, however, we do recommend that you check out the psychologytoday.com website. Also, if you need immediate support, contact 988, which is the 3-digit number to contact the National Crisis Hotline and Suicide number. Thanks for listening and watching, and enjoy the show.
Welcome back to Process Recordings. My name is Lisa Wessan, and I'm here with my co-host.
I'm Heath Hightower.
Yes, and we're here today to help you learn and grow and have adventures in consciousness to have the best life ever. That's what we're here for, and we're going to take you there in all different ways. So let's begin.
Yeah, so we're going to continue our conversation about beginnings, but today we're going to focus on specific beginnings that Lisa and I have experienced over the course of our lives. So we'll be interviewing each other about those beginnings. So we'll each describe those beginnings, and then we'll spend some time unpacking the important lessons and skills that we learned from those, and then we'll circle back around and we will kind of summarize those. So for those of you who are at home, who are trying to figure out how to navigate your own beginnings, perhaps some of what we share with you will be helpful in your own journey as you make your way through your own unique beginnings. So
Yeah. And beginnings is another term for transitions, actually.
Yeah.
We make transitions. We have plot twists. Things happen. So our new beginnings often are from wonderful things, like when you get married or you graduate from school, and then we have sometimes an illness or somebody dies or some trauma thing happens, So are you asking, you want me to start?
No, it doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do is fine with me.
Well, I feel like being the interviewer for a moment here. So,
Great.
So tell me, we've kind of sketched out prior personal, professional.
Yeah.
What is a professional, let's start with the easy one, professional new beginning for you that really was a landmark in your life?
So I would say probably the most important beginning professionally is when I graduated from college. I went to Seattle Pacific University in the Pacific Northwest. I decided I was going to go to graduate school, and for the longest time, I thought I was going to go off and become a world-famous clinical psychologist. And instead, one day, I saw a flyer for a program in social work, of all things. I'd never even heard of social work prior to that. And I decided, that sounds really interesting to me, this profession that looks at changing systems, but also trying to change individual people's lives who are embedded in those systems. So I applied, got in, and decided that I was going to move my life across the country to Boston, a city I'd never been to before. I had no friends, no family.
So brave.
And I was going to start this new profession that I barely knew anything about. And so, I would say that was probably the biggest professional beginning of my entire life.
Huge leap, literally.
Yeah.
Thousands of miles and cultural change, weather change, everything. Wow.
Yeah, and I almost didn't make the first semester because I was so miserable. I found the people cold and unfriendly. I'm used to the Seattle personality where people look each other in the eyes and
they're good connectors there.
And they are, people say hi to you on the streets even if they don't know you. And here I could never get people to make eye contact with me. And, I will also say that there was a real parallel beginnings where I was both professionally coming out as a social worker, but I was also personally coming out as a gay man. I didn't feel like I could do that in Seattle where everybody in my family was. And so for me, part of why it's hard for me to untether the personal and professional is both of those things were happening at the same time.
Very blended, very blended.
So I was emerging as a social worker, not knowing exactly what that was. And I was also emerging as a gay man and not being totally clear what that meant either.
A lot of new beginning, many levels of new beginnings.
Right.
Emotional, spiritual, physical. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah. And so that was a real parallel process. As I was learning to become a social worker, I was also learning what kind of gay man did I want to be, because a lot of what I was seeing in the media, it didn't feel authentic to me. And so I was trying to figure out how do I be this thing called gay, but still being true to myself.
Absolutely. There are over 50,000 shades of gay. Yeah. Maybe more. I don't know.
Probably an infinite number.
Infinite number.
That's right.
That's true.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a good personal. Should I share my personal one now, and then we'll go back and forth?
Sure.
Okay. So that was personal. That was both.
That was
Personal.
both. Yeah.
Well, mine are kind of intertwined, but so for me, I've had many different plot twists. We talked about this, kind of picking the topic for this segment, but I have to say probably that one of the most profound new beginnings for me was during the pandemic. Actually, right before the pandemic, I'd gotten sick and tired of being sick and tired in my obese body. And actually, my professional is kind of intertwined with that because I was studying DBT skill. Dialectical behavior therapy is very useful for people that have polarized thinking, or all or nothing, black and white. I'm either dieting and being really good, or I'm binging my brains out. I'm like, that crazy thinking. That was my version of crazy anyway. Long story short. And so January 26, 2019, I was visiting my parents down in Florida, and I had this ridiculous meal. I just had this huge meal with them. And then the place we were eating, they had this like Sunday buffet, ice cream buffet. And I literally made a sundae the size of my head. And I brought it to the table, and I said to my father, take a picture of this, because this is my last hurrah. I cannot take it anymore. I cannot take this. And I was over 300 pounds, long story short. And it wasn't my whole life this way. It was just this is a long story. The short version is I had maintained a large weight loss for many, many years, for 15 years. And then when I moved up here, I had a terrible adjustment to leaving New York City was hugely traumatic for me. I underestimated the problem of leaving my close friends and my groups and all my things, my graduate school network, my whatever. Long story short. So I gained all this weight in a terrible adjustment disorder. Anyway, and what ended up happening January 26, 2019 is my youngest sister had been politely persistent for years in my fat phase to get me to go to a weight loss program, do something. So I don't want to get into details, but I did take action at the end of January, and it was multimodal. And out of all the things I did, now when people ask me now, I'm maintaining 125-pound weight loss now. And I'm pretty much almost at my goal weight, a few pounds away. But when people ask me, how do you do this? What do you eat? And I always say to them, it's like 80% mindset and like 20% nutrition, exercise, lifting weights, but the mindset is so important. And that's what I've come to understand. That was a big new beginning for me, the mindset.
What was the aha experience for that mindset?
Well, again, using that expression that I think I have to say with all love and respect to my dear Lisa here, darling girl, I'm a recovering perfectionist. So it was very much the all or nothing, the perfect eating, perfect food, going to the gym, doing my 90-minute workout, 45 weightlifting, 45 cardio, 45 strengthening, whatever. I had these rules, and I had to break away from that. I had to stop being so rigid. And I became able to do a little bit. Can I just do 15 minutes on the treadmill and go home? Like, just do a little bit. And plus, when you're over 300 pounds, it's like you really cannot do all those things I used to do when I was thinner. So I did move a lot. So anyway, that was a new beginning for me. Just the learning how to be, the dialectical thinking really helped me move into taking a middle path with the food. So basically, instead of I used to be someone who was no sugar, flour, alcohol. No, not even coleslaw with sugar, not even ketchup. No sugar, no sugar, no sugar. No. Now I am someone who has no sugar, flour. Now I have pizza once a month.
Right.
And if I can get gluten-free or cauliflower, it's better for me, but I can eat regular pizza once in a while. So gluten, I'm not a gluten allergy, but it gives me, it causes inflammation. I get joint pain the next day. Point is, I have pizza once a month. I have shed all this weight having pizza once a month. The night that I eat pizza, it's as much as I want, whatever I want. I don't even think about it. So that was never before. Like, it used to be no pizza. No sugar, Now I'll have maybe 1 or 2 alcoholic drinks a month. Like I'll have 1 mojito or 1 beer. I mean, I used to no drink, 0, because it's sugar. Okay, so that's my point. Is I learned to be, basically it's called moderation management in the clinical terms. I learned how to do moderation management, and I learned how to be gentle with myself, and I learned how to forgive myself very quickly if I messed up. So that was a huge new beginning, to be gentle with myself when I made a mistake. So if I did have some cookies inappropriately at 10 o'clock at night, or if I did eat something regrettable, I would just go, darling girl, let's not do that again. Compassion was a new beginning for me. And then I let go of the slip or the problem, and the next day right back on it, as opposed to 2 or 3 months of relapsing. So prior to that, I was having long relapses. So that was a new beginning for me, just the gentleness. And again, the dialectical behavior therapy gave me a lot of skills, distress tolerance skills, emotional regulation skills, learning how to set boundaries so I don't get triggered, so I don't eat. It's a huge amount. That's why I did it. I did it as a student, and then I loved it so much I took the training on. But it helped me with this weight thing,
And for people who may not be familiar with the term dialectical thinking, how would you describe what dialectical thinking is?
The simplest definition is dialectical. It's like a $10 word for paradox, but it's basically holding opposite views in your mind and not having a meltdown. Like to say, even in a relationship, you can love someone but also hate them. That's okay. You can feel mixed feelings, and that's normal. Prior to understanding dialectics, I would think, ooh, you can't hate people. That's wrong. Now I go, yeah, I can hate somebody, and I also love them. So it gives it reduces polarized thinking, and it also takes you out of that binary dualistic trap where you just go, oh my God, it's a nightmare. No, I find a middle path.
So it's about being able to hold the complexity all at the same time.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Being able to hold the complexity and the cognitive dissonance, learning how to be comfortable.
The contradictions.
Learning how to be comfortable. Folks, if you can learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable, that is the beginning of a good life, because you can sit with it and move through it and not be like wanting to numb yourself or drug yourself or whatever, run away or go running for 5 miles. Like learning to sit with the discomfort,
right?
Which is dialectical too, because it's very uncomfortable. But you can get through it. You learn.
Yeah. Yeah, and so as you think about the entwined beginnings of moving to a place, kind of realizing that it was going to be much harder to move to a new community, and kind of that beginning of that beginning, what did you do kind of concretely to begin to manage that beginning more healthfully?
Well, it's a good question. And when I moved up here, I moved up here because I was in love with my husband, and I moved up here for love. God help me. But anyway, I did join groups. I went to Meetup. I needed to make some friends right away. I mean, I have my friends. I still have my core friends in New York, and you know who you are. Like, there's a core of people there that they're close to my heart. I speak to them every week. They're my family, and plus my family. But I went to Meetup. What I could recommend people do is join some groups where it's nice and relaxing. You don't feel pressure. I joined walking groups. I joined this group, Culture Vultures of Boston, because I find it relaxing going to museums and galleries. It's something I do when I want to relax. So I went to these culture vulture meetings, and did I make a close friend there? Actually, I did not. But I had some lovely outings, and I got to know my way around Boston. Got to see all the museums. The walking groups were great because I love to walk. And when I lived in New York City, I had 4 gals. We walked every morning from 6:30 to 7:30 in Central Park for 20 years. So leaving that, I thought I was trying to reproduce that up here, replicate. And I tried. I started my own meetup at one point. That's a long story. So I did try to replicate that. I could not get the people who would walk I like to walk 4 miles. So 3 or 4 miles anyway. So I never replicated that, actually. I tried. I did give it a good shot.
Yeah.
But and finding friends, I have the dearest friends I met, actually, believe it or not, I met a couple of gals at networking meetings. They had these like interesting career and networking groups. And of course, in our profession, I mean, I belong to the National Association of Social Workers. And I went to the meetings. Before the pandemic, we used to meet in person. Now we have an online group that meets once a month. And I have some friends there, and they're very special because they're professional and they're also friends, you know. So the group in Massachusetts is very active. And that was a way I made some friends too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how about you? So you also moved from Seattle to Boston. And by the way, I agree with you. I find them extremely buttoned up here. I want to tell you something, true story. My dearest friend up here, I won't say her name, but she might watch this. I don't know. Honestly, she didn't tell me her husband was an alcoholic until 7 years. That was top secret. And she was always very superficial and light with me. And finally, I confronted her and I said, you know, you talk about like movies and the weather and like food. You know, I don't know anything about your family. I'm more of an open book. New Yorkers are very quick to open. We don't have any shame about it. So my experience was not just with her, but like a lot of people up here are like so tightly wound. They don't want to talk about anything, which makes the therapy thing a little challenging too sometimes. It takes them a while to open up, some of them. Not all of them, but some of them. Right? Have you noticed? I mean,
yeah, certainly depending on
compared to
clients.
Seattle.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
No judgment, but
Of course. Yeah. So, you know, as I'm thinking about my own experience and what I found helpful, I'm much more of an introvert. So this is where we might benefit our audience because you're more of an extrovert. So one of the things that I found really helpful, because I am an introvert, I'm also an introvert who grew up in a military family. So for me, it was really important to establish a routine.
Yes.
Routine is structure, and structure really held me emotionally and psychologically. So I had my 8 a.m. routine, my 9. I scheduled my classes. I pretty much created a predictable schedule for myself.
Yes.
That was the first thing that I did. The second thing that I did is I reviewed all of the other beginnings I had ever had in my life. So I kind of did an inventory. And because I'm a military kid, we moved every 2 to 4 years all over the country.
A pro at that. Yeah.
So what I learned very quickly is routine, establish a routine, really important. I also realized that the things that I am good at are sports. So one of the very first things that I did when I moved to Boston was I joined a gay volleyball league. I grew up playing volleyball. So it was an opportunity for me to enter into gay culture without having to enter into gay bar culture, which just didn't resonate with who I am as a person. So for me, getting involved in gay athletics was incredibly important in my own coming out process. But it also really kind of made me more aware of what kind of gay man I wanted to be. Just in terms of what I wanted the focus of my life to be. And part of what I actually realized, and that is being an athlete is actually way more important to me than being gay. So what I really learned about just identity in general was that this kind of socio-political identity of being gay is oftentimes what gets foregrounded in our conversations in our culture. But for me, it was a non-socio-demographic identity. Being an athlete has always been really important to me. And eventually becoming a social worker was incredibly important to me. So I would say a combination of structure, doing an inventory of what I had done in all of the other beginnings I had ever had in my life. And then going back to what I'm good at, going back to my strengths, which have always been sports. So I then tried to fit together this emerging gay identity with an identity that was already drawing from my strengths. And that's how I started to meet people. And actually none of those relationships lasted, but they were relationships that allowed me to get comfortable in my own skin, get comfortable with this new life I was creating. It actually allowed me to stay in Boston because I actually almost left after my first semester, as I said. It really wasn't until I found the Gay Volleyball League in Cambridge that really helped me. feel much more settled and just much more comfortable in my own skin and much more able to tackle all of the stressful beginnings of becoming a social worker.
Right.
Like
it's a huge learning curve.
Right, exactly. New clients, learning how to really analyze everything that you do and feel. Like, that's grueling work.
Yeah, the environment.
So I found that the structure I created really created an internal structure that just really held me together as I was trying to figure out all of these new beginnings.
So you're saying that, I love that. What I'm hearing you say is that you found freedom in the framework.
Yeah.
Having the framework is so important, and I feel that way. I learned that during the pandemic, actually. One of my best takeaways was, again, and also I guess I am an athlete because, I do a lot of, I don't consider myself an athlete. I never had a sweater letter or something.
Right.
But I started weightlifting, and I go to weightlifting classes. I'm part of this community of weightlifters here, and hiking. The Appalachian Mountain Club, go on hikes and stuff. And I love. This body loves to go on a good 5-6 mile hike. Can't do it every day, but I fit them in, and that's part of values too. The values, and when you hang out with people who share those values, you're more likely. I make friends with these people who share the weightlifting and the hiking and yoga too. I'm also yoga. So those things were part of my multimodal treatment for the weight loss and maintaining the weight loss. I tell people too that restorative yoga, even if you're 350 pounds, restorative yoga you can do no matter what size you are or how old you are. And I released so much stress. That pandemic knocked it out of me. I was always a meditator. Since I'm 12, I'm meditating. It wasn't enough. Meditation was not doing it. And restorative yoga saved my life. Yeah. Saved my life. And so anyway, so the yoga, the weightlifting, hiking, all those things give me a framework, and they're scheduled. I have them scheduled into my week, which is for me the framework also.
Right.
It helps us, and I'm glad exercise is such a gift. I don't want to get corny about it, but I always tell my clients, that movement is medicine. Everyone's always curious, what supplement should I take? What pill? Should I take medication? Those are all okay. Yeah. But when you exercise a lot, it changes your brain chemistry, it changes your endocrine system,
Yeah, and I think to me there are two words that you just said there that feel really important to me: movement versus exercise. Mm-hmm. I think when people think about exercise, they have lots of negative. Yeah, it's really negative. Yeah. People feel like they're not good at it. They feel self-conscious about it. Whereas movement is actually what we're going for. And if you think about it, all of our bodies were made for movement, but not everybody was made for lots of heavy-duty athletic exercise. Yeah. And so I think movement feels like a really important word. I also think it's really important as we're talking about beginnings, because beginnings are a starting point. And like all starting points, whether it's birth, from birth we move through the other phases of life. When we're starting a new job, there is a beginning, but then we move through that job and we move up the corporate ladder and we get promotions. So I like this paralleling of beginnings and movements. And if you think about it, whether you're an extrovert like you or an introvert like me, all of the skills and techniques and strategies we used were about moving us through the uncertainty and unknowns that come with every new beginning.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah, no, it's true. And by the way, you're calling me, I can be extroverted, but I've come to see I'm actually more of an introvert.
Okay.
I read Susan Cain's book, have you seen Quiet?
Yeah.
Love her book, Quiet. How to be an introvert in a world that doesn't shut up. It's a great book if you're an introvert. And I realized, oh my God, I'm definitely an introvert. And the thing is, I can be extroverted.
Sure.
But I have learned to take restorative niches. That's the thing I took away from Susan Cain. I've got to take pauses and get out of the cycle, get out of the circle of people and refresh. Yeah. I can't be on all the time. It's too much. Yeah. So, so the new beginnings. So your new beginnings, I love hearing this, that your career and your athleticism really served you to transform into a good life in Boston. Yeah. And I understand. When I moved up here, I don't want to bash the Boston people, but it's a very different environment than New York City, and I feel bad. It is what it is, But I have to say, I'm amazed at how it's so close geographically, but the culture is very different.
Yeah, and I actually feel like after 28 years of living, I feel like I am a Bostonian now. I drive like a Bostonian now, which I actually do with great pride, especially when I'm back on the West Coast driving like a Bostonian. My mother and my grandmother won't drive with me now. So I actually feel a great deal of pride about my new hometown, or my new home, which has been Boston for the last several decades. So, yeah.
So we're wrapping up soon.
Yeah.
Any last minute thoughts you want to share before we close?
No, I mean, I think that, in summary, I think really reflecting about your own beginnings, what you've learned from them, can be a really good roadmap for what to do now. I think one of the things that we always think that we have to do is reinvent the wheel. But because beginnings are so ubiquitous, they're such a common experience, we all have lots of beginnings to draw from as we are starting new beginnings. And so I would just encourage people, think about all of the beginnings you've had, what you've learned from those, both the good things and the bad things, and let that shape what you do with all future beginnings.
And I'll add to that wonderful wisdom that you see us sitting here today, we seem so relaxed and whatever, contented. But I know for me, baby steps. I'm going to say I took a lot of baby steps to get where I am right now, and I failed forward, made a lot of mistakes. I used to just do 10 minutes of weightlifting and watching the Stephen Colbert monologue. And it took me 2 years to get to a gym and finally get into a full mode thing. So go slow. Making baby changes for transitioning, for new beginning, or whatever your new beginning is, go slow. You don't have to, there's no, quantum leaping is fantasy. It doesn't even work. People often relapse and go too fast, too soon. Yeah. All right, I think we're on time. So thank you guys for watching with us. It's a pleasure being with you, Heath.
Yeah.
And we are here again next time. In the meantime, we hope you have a healthy, good next several weeks, and keep growing and learning. And remember, good health is wealth. Go for it.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Process Recordings is produced by Heath Hightower and Lisa Wessan, with technical support from Chelmsford TeleMedia, the community media center of Chelmsford, Massachusetts.